The Azure Dreams resort in the Maldives went silent on July 15, 2022. 18-year-old Victoria Anderson disappeared from one of the most secure luxury resorts in the world, leaving behind only a hidden diary and a trail of evidence that would expose decades of calculated predatory behavior. Victoria was last seen at the resort's beachfront restaurant at 7:43 p.m. She borrowed waitress Amora Rashid's phone, made a brief call, and vanished. Her new husband, 70-year-old hotel magnate James Crawford, waited 36 hours before reporting her missing. When questioned, he claimed she had gone for a midnight swim. Resort security logs would later show Crawford made 3 calls to his legal team before allowing a beach search. The discovery came in Villa 247. Under the bed lay Victoria's diary, its final entry direct and damning. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. JC discovered the photos. He knows I was going to expose everything. Sophie has the evidence. The local police found signs of struggle hidden beneath expensive furniture. Blood traces. Broken jewelry. A shattered phone. Detective Jessica Blackwood arrived 3 days later. Her investigation uncovered a pattern spanning years. Jennifer Hayes, 19, vanished in 2016 after meeting Crawford at one of his hotels. Maria Santos, 20, found dead in 2018 after threatening to expose him. Ashley Porter, 18, whose 2020 suicide came days after she contacted a journalist about Crawford's private islands. Crawford's empire stretched beyond his hotel chain. Private islands equipped with surveillance systems. Offshore accounts moving millions. A network of employees paid to stay silent. Young women hired, isolated, and eliminated when they became threats. Victoria Anderson had stumbled into this web, thinking she was marrying into wealth and security. Instead, she had caught the attention of a predator who had perfected his method over decades. The evidence was in the details. Crawford's phone records showed a call the night Victoria vanished. It's handled. Start the cleanup. His security team began destroying records within hours of her disappearance. But they missed the cameras at the resort's service entrance. They didn't know about Victoria's twin sister Sophie, who had received encrypted files the day before. They couldn't erase the DNA under Victoria's broken fingernails, found when police searched the villa's drains. This wasn't just another missing person case. It was the thread that, when pulled, would unravel a decades-long operation of exploitation, trafficking, and murder hidden behind legitimate business and political connections. Victoria Anderson's disappearance wasn't the end of a honeymoon. It was the beginning of an investigation that would expose how wealth and power had protected a predator who had been hiding in plain sight. The hunt for justice was about to begin. Victoria Anderson grew up in a modest 2-story house on the outskirts of Franklin, Tennessee, where rusted mailboxes marked driveways and everyone knew which families struggled to make ends meet. Born 4 minutes after her twin Sophie, Victoria showed early signs of the determination that would later catch a predator's eye. The Anderson twins were inseparable, though markedly different. While Sophie preferred books and solitude, Victoria gravitated toward the spotlight. At 14, she entered her first local beauty pageant, wearing a second-hand dress altered by their mother, Sarah. She won, not just for her natural beauty but for her talent, a haunting violin piece she'd practiced for months on a borrowed instrument. The prize money went straight to their mother's growing pile of medical bills. Sarah Anderson's diagnosis came when the twins were 15. Stage 3 breast cancer. The treatment costs devastated the family's already fragile finances. Their father, unable to cope with mounting debts and his wife's illness, left one Sunday morning for cigarettes. They never saw him again. Victoria threw herself into every opportunity to earn money. She maintained a 4.0 GPA while working after school, competed in pageants for prize money, and helped Sophie tutor younger students. Her college acceptance letter to Vanderbilt came with a partial scholarship, not enough to cover full costs, but a dream worth chasing. That dream would lead her to the Bluebird Diner, where minimum wage and tips might eventually add up to tuition. The diner shift that changed everything started like any other. June 3, 2022. Victoria was covering extra hours, her white apron already stained with coffee when James Crawford's private jet landed at Nashville International Airport. He wasn't supposed to be there. His usual route bypassed Tennessee completely. Later investigations would reveal he'd diverted his flight after seeing Victoria's photo in a local pageant write-up. Crawford sat in her section for 3 hours, ordering only coffee. He watched her interactions, noted her gentle way with elderly customers, observed her counting tips between tables. He saw what he always looked for: beauty, yes, but also desperation. Need. The next day, he returned. And the next. Each time leaving $100 tips with business cards tucked underneath. Victoria initially resisted his attention. She told Sophie about the creepy rich guy who wouldn't stop asking about her life. But when Crawford mentioned his hotel chain needed managers, that he could offer Sarah Anderson a position with full medical coverage, the hook was set. The pressure built slowly. First, casual mentions of Sarah's potential job becoming permanent. Then, hints about Victoria's college tuition. Small gifts appeared: a new phone when hers broke, groceries delivered when the family's account ran low. Each kindness carried invisible strings. Crawford's masterstroke came in late June. Sarah Anderson was offered a position as guest relations manager at Crawford's Nashville hotel. Salary triple her previous income, with comprehensive health insurance. The same day, Victoria found an envelope containing her full tuition payment for Vanderbilt. The note read simply, "No strings attached. Just dinner to say thank you." Sophie saw through it first. "Everything has a price with him," she warned Victoria. "Nobody gives away this much for nothing." But their mother was getting better treatment than they'd ever imagined possible. The family's debts were vanishing. Victoria felt trapped by gratitude. The control tightened gradually. Crawford needed to protect his investment in their family. Victoria's diner shifts conflicted with their dinner dates. She should quit. Her friends didn't understand their relationship. Better to keep things private. Sophie asked too many questions. Perhaps the tuition money could be reconsidered? By August, Victoria's world had shrunk to Crawford's orbit. Her phone, his gift, had tracking software installed for her safety. Her college enrollment was deferred because Crawford had better opportunities in mind. Sarah's job security depended on Victoria's compliance with Crawford's growing demands. The final threads of Victoria's independence vanished with a phone call in early September. Sarah's cancer had responded remarkably to the new treatments, but insurance approval was suddenly under review. Crawford could help sort things out over dinner. When Victoria arrived at his hotel suite that evening, a diamond ring waited beside the wine glass. It wasn't a proposal so much as a conclusion. Sophie tried one last time to intervene. She'd discovered similar stories: young women Crawford had helped, then married, then who vanished. But Victoria could only see her mother's improving health, the stable income, the promises of security. "I'm choosing this," she told Sophie. "I can handle him." 3 months later, Victoria Anderson married James Crawford in a lavish ceremony. Security cameras caught her crying in the church bathroom beforehand. Everyone assumed they were tears of joy. James Crawford built his empire on broken dreams and buried secrets. Crawford Hotels International, with its gleaming towers in 40 countries, stood as a monument to wealth and success. The public saw a self-made billionaire who rose from humble beginnings in Boston. Behind the marble lobbies and press releases lay a darker truth. By day, Crawford moved through elite circles with practiced ease. His annual charity gala for children's education drew politicians and celebrities. He sat on prestigious boards, donated millions to cancer research, and maintained homes in New York, Paris, and Dubai. Magazine profiles painted him as a ruthless but brilliant businessman. His 5 marriages to younger women dismissed as mere eccentricity. The Crawford Foundation funded scholarships for underprivileged girls. He received humanitarian awards, gave commencement speeches, and hosted fundraisers for political candidates. His reputation seemed untouchable. When questioned about his preference for young wives, Crawford had a rehearsed response: "Age is just a number. Love knows no boundaries." The media ate it up. But there was another Crawford empire, hidden beneath legitimate business operations. It started with Jennifer Hayes in 2016. She was a 19-year-old receptionist at his Chicago hotel. Crawford offered her a promotion, then private training at his island resort. She vanished during the trip. Police found no evidence of foul play. Her family received a generous settlement and a confidentiality agreement. Maria Santos came next. 20 years old, working as a housekeeper in his Miami property. Crawford married her in a private ceremony. 6 months later, her body washed up on a private beach. The death was ruled accidental drowning. The investigator who questioned this conclusion lost his job after allegations of misconduct. His replacement closed the case within days. Ashley Porter knew too much. At 18, she worked in customer service at Crawford's Las Vegas hotel. She discovered financial irregularities, offshore accounts moving millions through shell companies. She threatened to expose him. A week later, security cameras caught her jumping from her apartment balcony. The suicide note, perfectly typed, mentioned depression. Her laptop vanished. The pattern emerged slowly. Young women from struggling families. Jobs at Crawford Properties. Sudden promotions. Private trips to isolated locations. Then silence. Some vanished completely. Others had accidents. A few signed lifetime non-disclosure agreements, relocated to distant countries with generous monthly payments. Crawford's network ran deep. Security Chief Marcus Chen coordinated surveillance and cleanup operations. Financial advisor Robert Walsh handled payoffs and evidence purchases. Hotel managers identified potential targets. Doctors provided false medical reports. Police chiefs buried investigations. Politicians blocked inquiries. The private islands served multiple purposes. Officially, they were exclusive resorts for wealthy clients. In reality, they housed Crawford's darker operations. Underground rooms with surveillance equipment. Medical facilities for emergencies. Boats ready to move people or evidence. Staff paid triple normal wages for absolute loyalty. Crawford collected leverage like others collected art. Every employee, every ally, every silent partner had secrets he kept. Photos, videos, financial records, insurance against betrayal. Those who cooperated received bonuses. Those who resisted disappeared. His previous wives followed a pattern. Diana Crawford, 1998 to 2000, died in a car accident after filing for divorce. Elizabeth Crawford, 2001 to 2004, overdosed in a hotel room when she threatened to talk. Sarah Crawford, 2005 to 2007, simply vanished during a Caribbean cruise. Rachel Crawford, 2008 to 2010, lives in Switzerland, receiving monthly payments for her silence. Michelle Crawford, 2011 to 2015, survived a home invasion that left her unwilling to testify about anything. The operation moved with terrifying efficiency. Target identification. Background research. Financial pressure on families. Job offers. Isolation from support networks. Documentation of compromising situations. Marriage if necessary. Elimination if required. Crawford maintained multiple identities. Passports under different names. Bank accounts in tax havens. Properties owned through layers of corporations. Each hotel contained secure floors accessible only with special keys. Staff learned quickly. See nothing, hear nothing, say nothing. His private security force rivaled small armies. Ex-military personnel. Former intelligence operators. Everyone vetted, paid well, and compromised. They monitored communications, followed family members, erased evidence. No detail was too small to control. The corruption extended to highest levels. Judges who blocked investigations. Prosecutors who lost evidence. Journalists who killed stories. Politicians who changed laws. Crawford didn't just buy silence, he bought systems. By 2022, when Victoria Anderson caught his eye, Crawford's operation was almost perfect. Almost. He didn't count on Sophie Anderson's determination. Didn't expect Detective Blackwood's persistence. Didn't realize his own arrogance would finally break the pattern. Victoria represented something new, a witness who left evidence. A victim who planned ahead. A loose thread that would unravel decades of carefully constructed control. Crawford had built an empire on other people's silence. It would fall because he underestimated one small-town girl's will to expose the truth. Crawford's control over Victoria Anderson began methodically. Each gift, each favor, each seemingly kind gesture tightened the noose. First came the phone, latest model, pre-installed with security apps. Victoria didn't know these tracked her location, recorded calls, and monitored messages. Her mother's cancer treatment schedule depended on keeping that phone active and with her at all times. Financial dependency formed the foundation. Crawford's team analyzed the Anderson family's weaknesses: medical bills, mortgage payments, utility arrears. One by one, these debts vanished. Each time, Crawford reminded Victoria of his generosity. He started requiring her presence at business dinners to earn these kindnesses. The family's financial survival became increasingly tied to Victoria's compliance. Surveillance escalated weekly. Security teams monitored her movements. Crawford staff photographed her interactions with friends. Reports detailed her every activity. When she tried meeting Sophie secretly at a coffee shop, Crawford called immediately. "Your mother's position requires certain security measures." For her safety, of course. The physical intimidation started subtly. A grip too tight on her arm. Standing too close during conversations. Security guards positioned to block exits. If Victoria showed resistance, Crawford would remind her of her mother's job, her father's abandonment, her responsibility to family stability. Psychological warfare proved Crawford's specialty. He'd praise Victoria's maturity, then mock her youth. Compliment her intelligence, then question her judgment. Give extravagant gifts, then threaten to reclaim everything. The constant contradiction left her doubting her own perceptions. Isolation happened systematically. Friends received anonymous warnings about associating with her. College admission was deferred because Crawford needed her focus. Family dinners became rare because business required her presence. Even Sophie's access was restricted through scheduling conflicts and surveillance. The private island marked the turning point. 1 month before their wedding, Crawford flew Victoria to his remote property. The compound looked like paradise. Inside, it was a prison. Here, Crawford's true nature emerged. Other girls were there, young, afraid, controlled through similar methods. Victoria witnessed parties where wealthy men treated women like property. Medical records from this period show a pattern. Unexplained bruises, sprained wrists, prescription sedatives. Dr. Marcus Chen, Crawford's private physician, documented everything while maintaining silence. Blood tests revealed forced drug use, sedatives to ensure compliance, stimulants to maintain appearance at public events. Victoria attempted escape twice. The first time, she tried reaching a boat at night. Security caught her before she reached the water. The second attempt involved a hidden phone and planned pickup by Sophie. Crawford's surveillance detected the communication. The consequences were severe. 3 days in isolation while Crawford reminded her of her obligations. Witness accounts from staff reveal Victoria's deterioration. She stopped speaking unless spoken to, reported a maid. Her hands shook constantly, noted a driver. Sometimes she'd just stare at nothing, a security guard recalled. The once vibrant beauty queen became a shadow. Crawford recorded everything. Hidden cameras in private spaces captured abuse and humiliation. These recordings served dual purposes: blackmail against victims and entertainment for wealthy clients. Victoria discovered one such camera in a pendant Crawford forced her to wear. This discovery would later become crucial evidence. The wedding proceeded despite Victoria's obvious distress. Guests noticed bruises poorly concealed by makeup. During the reception, Victoria tried passing a note to her sister. Crawford's security intercepted it. That night, Crawford reminded Victoria that accidents happen to unappreciative wives. In their first month of marriage, hospital visits were disguised as spa treatments. Broken fingers, cracked ribs, concussion. Each injury had a prepared explanation. Each doctor received generous compensation for discretion. Victoria learned to smile through pain, to explain away injuries, to accept abuse as routine. Crawford established total control through a combination of threats, surveillance, and psychological manipulation. He isolated Victoria from support, created financial dependencies, and maintained constant pressure. His network of enablers ensured no evidence leaked, no witnesses talked, and no authority intervened. But Crawford made one miscalculation. He underestimated the bond between twin sisters. While Victoria endured abuse, Sophie gathered evidence. Each bruise photographed, each threat recorded, each witness statement documented. Unknown to Crawford, His perfect victim was building a case that would eventually destroy him. The manipulation that had worked on previous victims became evidence of systematic abuse. Victoria's suffering would ultimately expose decades of crimes, but the price she paid was catastrophic. In trying to protect her family, she entered a nightmare that would end on a beach in the Maldives, where Crawford's control finally met its match in a victim who found the courage to fight back. The engagement announcement appeared in the Nashville Herald on October 15, 2022. Hotel magnate James Crawford, 70, to wed local beauty queen Victoria Anderson, 18. The photo showed Victoria's perfect smile. Only Sophie noticed her sister's hands clenched behind her back, knuckles white with tension. Crawford orchestrated the perfect fairy tale narrative. PR firms spun their age gap as a romantic triumph over societal prejudice. Magazines featured Victoria's rags to riches story, carefully omitting her mother's medical bills, the leveraged job offers, the systematic isolation. Crawford played the besotted billionaire, Victoria the grateful young bride. The prenuptial agreement arrived at midnight. Victoria, alone with Crawford's lawyers, faced 50 pages of carefully worded control. Full custody of future children to Crawford. No contact with specified negative influences, a list that included Sophie. Complete financial dependence. Silence about all private matters. The choice was simple. Sign or watch her mother lose everything. Behind the scenes, Sophie fought desperately. She contacted domestic violence shelters, but Crawford's influence blocked every avenue. She gathered evidence, photographs of bruises, recordings of threats, witness statements from hotel staff. Each piece disappeared from her apartment. Police reports were misplaced. Journalists who showed interest suddenly dropped the story. Victoria left one final piece of evidence with Sophie, a USB drive hidden in her old violin case. If anything happens to me, she whispered during their last secret meeting, this proves everything. The next day, Crawford's security team collected all of Victoria's childhood belongings for storage. The wedding venue, Crawford's Aspen estate, transformed into a winter wonderland. $5 million bought perfection. Imported flowers, crystal decorations, celebrity performers. News helicopters captured aerial shots of the spectacle. Security teams kept photographers at approved angles, hiding the guards stationed at every exit. Victoria's wedding dress, a custom Vera Wang creation, covered the fingertip-shaped bruises on her arms. Makeup concealed the fading mark on her cheek, a reminder of her last escape attempt. Her smile never wavered as cameras flashed. She'd learned the price of imperfection. Guests later recalled odd details. The bride's maid of honor missing. Sophie had been uninvited last minute causing family tension. Victoria's hands trembling during vows. The way Crawford gripped her elbow when she walked, redirecting her movements. His smile when she stumbled over obey in their traditional vows. During the reception, Victoria made one last desperate move. While dancing with her mother, she slipped a note into Sarah's purse. Crawford's security recovered it before Sarah reached her car. That night, Victoria learned how thoroughly her new husband monitored her every move. The mother-daughter dance proved particularly poignant. Sarah Anderson, now in remission thanks to Crawford's generosity, held her daughter close. "Are you happy, sweetheart?" she whispered. Victoria's answer was drowned out by the music, but guests nearby saw tears streak her carefully applied makeup. Near midnight, Sophie made a final attempt to reach her sister. She had scaled the estate's back wall, carrying proof of Crawford's previous victims. Security caught her meters from the bridal suite. Crawford pressed no charges. He didn't need to. The message was clear. Resistance was futile. The wedding video, later reviewed by investigators, captured telling moments. Crawford's possessive grip during photos. Victoria's flinch when he touched her face. The best man's toast referencing Crawford's appreciation for youth. Most telling was the footage from unused angles. Victoria mouthing, "Help me," to a server. Crawford's whispered threats between poses, security guards blocking all exits. As the reception ended, Victoria stood on the grand staircase for the final photos. Her bouquet landed at Sophie's feet. She had sneaked back in wearing catering staff uniform. It was their last contact before the honeymoon. Inside the flowers, Sophie found a small note, USB in violin. "Show Blackwood everything." The newlyweds departed at midnight for the Maldives. Crawford, ever the showman, carried his bride to the waiting limousine. Guests cheered at the romantic gesture. None saw his fingers digging into her ribs, or heard his whispered warning, "Remember our agreement." Accidents happen on honeymoons. Victoria Anderson became Victoria Crawford with a signature and a kiss. She entered a prison built of wealth and threats, sealed by vows and violence. Her wedding was a masterclass in manipulation, a $5 million facade hiding a transaction of power and control. But in her final act of defiance, she had planted the seeds of Crawford's destruction, evidence that would outlive her final days in paradise. Azure Dreams Resort welcomed the Crawfords on July 12, 2022. Villa 247, isolated on the resort's northern tip, became both paradise and prison. Security footage shows Victoria stumbling as they entered. Staff noted her dilated pupils, suggesting forced sedation during the flight. The abuse escalated immediately. Resort cameras captured Victoria running through the beach at 3 a.m. their first night, Crawford's security team intercepting her before she reached the main building. Guest services logged noise complaints from neighboring villas. Furniture being moved, the reports stated. The next morning, Victoria appeared at breakfast wearing long sleeves despite the tropical heat. Her last successful contact with Sophie came through a borrowed phone from housekeeping. "He found something on my phone. Photos of documents from his office. He's been talking to someone about cleaning up loose ends. I think this is it. Sophie. If I don't." The call disconnected. The housekeeper was relocated to another property that afternoon. July 14th brought the final pieces into place. Crawford held meetings with unknown visitors in his villa. Staff reported deliveries of unusual supplies, industrial cleaning materials, heavy-duty plastic sheeting, diving equipment. Victoria made 4 attempts to use the resort's business center computer. Each time, security arrived within minutes to escort her back. Hotel staff documented increasing concerns. Head chef Marco Rossi reported Victoria's hands shaking too badly to hold her fork at dinner. Spa therapist Amy Chen noted, severe bruising inconsistent with normal activities. Beach attendant Raj Patel observed Crawford's aggressive handling of Victoria during a supposedly romantic sunset walk. The last verified sighting came at 7:43 p.m. on July 15th. Security footage shows Victoria entering the beachfront restaurant alone, a rare moment without Crawford's surveillance. She borrowed waitress Amora Rashid's phone, made a brief call later traced to a burner phone in Sophie's possession. Her final words recorded, "He knows about the files. All of it. The girls, the islands, everything. I hid." The call cut off. Crawford reported her missing 36 hours later. His timeline claimed she went for a midnight swim. Resort logs showed different activity. 8:15 p.m., Crawford meets 2 unidentified men at villa. 9:30 p.m., security cameras on North Beach malfunction. 10:45 p.m., unusual boat activity near villa's private dock. 11:50 p.m., power fluctuation in Villa 247. 2:30 a.m., Crawford's security team loads heavy bags into boat. 4:15 a.m., cleaning crew requested for villa. 5 a.m., Crawford makes first of 3 calls to his lawyers. The crime scene, when finally processed, revealed careful cleanup. However, trace evidence remained. Blood residue in shower drain. Broken nails embedded in furniture. A torn piece of Victoria's dress behind the bed. Most damning, partial fingerprints on a vial of sedatives found in the villa safe. Crawford's cover-up operation moved with practiced efficiency. Security footage disappeared. Witnesses received transfers or severance packages. Local authorities initially treated it as a missing persons case, until Detective Blackwood arrived and found evidence of wider pattern. The body was never recovered. Ocean currents and Crawford's resources ensured that. But Victoria's last act of defiance proved fatal to Crawford's freedom. The USB drive hidden in her childhood violin contained everything: financial records, surveillance footage from private islands, documentation of previous victims. She had spent months gathering evidence, knowing her death was inevitable. Crawford's carefully constructed alibi collapsed under investigation. Cell tower data placed him at the beach during his claimed dinner meeting. Resort staff contradicted his timeline. Most critically, his own security team eventually turned on him, providing detailed accounts of body disposal in exchange for immunity. Victoria Anderson Crawford vanished into the warm waters of the Indian Ocean. But she left behind a trail of evidence that would ensure James Crawford's empire of abuse finally crumbled. Her last days were a calculated play, gathering evidence even as she knew her time grew short. In death, she accomplished what she couldn't in life. She exposed decades of systematic abuse and murder. The final entry in her hidden diary, found later in Sophie's possession, read simply, "I chose this. I knew what would happen. Make him pay for all of us." Detective Jessica Blackwood felt the oppressive heat as she stepped off the plane in the Maldives. 4 days had passed since Victoria Anderson's disappearance, and already she could sense the case disappearing beneath layers of money and influence. Crawford's press conference played on airport screens, a masterclass in manufactured grief. But Blackwood had spent 20 years studying predators who hid behind wealth and power. She recognized the performance for what it was. Villa 247 told its own story. Despite the meticulous cleanup, despite the fresh paint and replaced furniture, evidence remained for those who knew where to look. Luminol revealed blood spatter patterns behind newly painted walls. The shower drain held traces of industrial cleaner, along with strands of Victoria's hair. A broken fingernail, perfectly preserved in a bedroom carpet seam, provided crucial DNA evidence. Under UV light, a notepad revealed the impression of Victoria's last written words. Storage Unit 23, Miami. The investigation expanded like ripples in still water. Each discovery led to older cases, other victims. Jennifer Hayes vanished from Crawford's Chicago hotel in 2016, leaving behind similar traces of the same sedative found in Victoria's room. Maria Santos's body, found in 2018, showed identical patterns of abuse. Ashley Porter's supposed suicide in 2020 matched Victoria's case in haunting detail. Crawford's financial empire began to crack under scrutiny. Offshore accounts revealed regular payments to a network of enablers, police chiefs who buried investigations, judges who blocked inquiries, medical examiners who altered reports. Private islands, purchased through layers of shell companies, served as more than luxury retreats. Security teams received permanent retainers for special services. Each thread pulled revealed darker patterns beneath. The breakthrough came from Victoria herself. The USB drive hidden in her childhood violin contained everything she'd gathered during her months of captivity. Video footage from Crawford's private islands showed systematic abuse. Financial records detailed human trafficking operations. Email chains discussed disposal of problems. Voice recordings captured threats and coordinates of body disposal sites. Victoria, even knowing her likely fate, had built the case that would destroy her killer. Crawford's organization began to implode. Marcus Chen, head of security, was the first to turn. Facing life imprisonment, he traded information for protection. His testimony provided the brutal timeline of Victoria's final hours. Shortly after her last desperate phone call at 7:43 p.m., Crawford's disposal team arrived at the villa. By midnight, Victoria was dead. By dawn, a professional diving team had ensured her body would never be found. International cooperation revealed the true scope of Crawford's operations. Interpol connected his hotels to trafficking rings across Europe and Asia. FBI forensic accountants uncovered money laundering operations worth billions. Local authorities in multiple countries discovered similar cases, all linked to Crawford's properties, all buried under mountains of money and influence. The evidence became overwhelming. DNA analysis matched Victoria's blood in villa drains and Crawford's skin cells on a recovered necktie. Security logs showed systematic camera failures at crucial moments. Hotel staff, finally free to speak, detailed years of special guest protocols and cleanup operations. Victoria's saved fingernail scrapings contained Crawford's DNA, her final act of evidence collection proving crucial to the case. 3 months after Victoria's death, Blackwood arrested James Crawford at his New York penthouse. The man who had performed grief so convincingly at press conferences showed no emotion as the handcuffs clicked shut. His empire of abuse, built over decades and protected by wealth, collapsed under the weight of evidence his final victim had gathered. In death, Victoria Anderson accomplished what no one had managed in life. Her carefully collected evidence exposed not just her own murder, but decades of systematic abuse and killing. She had turned Crawford's own methods against him, documenting everything, knowing she would not survive to see justice done. The price was her life, but her sacrifice finally ended Crawford's reign of terror. When asked later why this case succeeded where others failed, Detective Blackwood's answer was simple. Victoria Anderson didn't just die. She left us a map to every dark corner of Crawford's world. She knew she was going to die, so she made sure she didn't die in vain. The United States District Court in Manhattan fell silent on January 15, 2023, as James Crawford entered in handcuffs. Gone were the tailored suits and confident smile. In their place stood a man in prison orange, his empire crumbling, his mask finally stripped away. District Attorney Sarah Martinez opened with devastating precision. This case isn't about one murder. It's about decades of systematic abuse, trafficking, and killing, all hidden behind wealth and respectability. James Crawford didn't just kill Victoria Anderson. He killed hope, innocence, and trust over and over again. The prosecution's case unfolded over 6 weeks. Former Security Chief Marcus Chen detailed the machinery of murder, how Crawford selected victims, isolated them, and eliminated those who threatened exposure. Hotel staff testified about special protocols for young female guests. Financial experts mapped the flow of hush money and payoffs. Victoria's evidence proved most damaging. Her video recordings, played in court, showed Crawford's rage when confronted. Audio captured his threats, his admissions of previous murders, his detailed instructions for disposing of problems. Each piece of evidence had been carefully gathered, catalogued, and hidden, creating an unbreakable chain of proof. Sophie Anderson took the stand midway through the trial. Her testimony about Victoria's final months, the bruises, the fear, the desperate plan to gather evidence, left even hardened court officers in tears. She knew he would kill her, Sophie testified. She made sure her death would mean something. Crawford's defense crumbled under the weight of evidence. His lawyers attempted to paint Victoria as unstable, claiming her death was suicide. The medical examiner's testimony shattered this defense, methodically detailing signs of strangulation that preceded drowning. DNA evidence placed Crawford at the scene. Financial records showed payments to cleanup crews within hours of Victoria's death. The most powerful moment came during victim impact statements. Jennifer Hayes' mother described years of searching for answers. Maria Santos's brother spoke of justice delayed. Ashley Porter's father confronted Crawford directly. You thought money could hide your evil. But those girls, they were stronger than your money. Sarah Anderson, Victoria's mother, saved the most devastating testimony for last. She spoke not of grief but of guilt, how Crawford had used her illness to control Victoria, how her treatment had become the chains binding her daughter to a monster. I survived cancer, she said, but the price was my child's life. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours. The verdict, guilty on all counts. First-degree murder, human trafficking, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, financial crimes. Each conviction representing years of carefully hidden atrocities. Judge Helen Martinez delivered the sentence. Life imprisonment without possibility of parole, plus 150 years for additional crimes. Her words cut through Crawford's last pretense of power. You built an empire on broken lives, Mr. Crawford. Now you'll spend the rest of your life remembering each life you destroyed. Crawford's arrest triggered international investigations. 3 former wives came forward with similar stories. Police in 5 countries reopened suspicious deaths at Crawford hotels. The network of enablers, corrupt officials, compromised police, paid witnesses, faced their own reckonings. The Crawford empire dissolved under scrutiny. Hotels sold. Assets seized. A billion-dollar fortune redirected to victim compensation funds. The Victoria Anderson Foundation, established by Sophie, now works to protect vulnerable women from wealthy predators. As Crawford was led from court, Sophie Anderson stood. In her hand, she held Victoria's violin, the instrument that had hidden the evidence that brought down a monster. This is what justice looks like, she said. This is what Victoria died for. The case changed laws concerning wealth's influence in criminal investigations. Victoria's law now requires independent oversight of cases involving billionaire suspects. Her death exposed not just one predator, but an entire system that protected wealth over justice. In the end, Victoria Anderson's carefully laid plan worked exactly as she had intended. Her death became the key that unlocked decades of hidden crimes. Her evidence freed other victims to speak. Her sacrifice ensured that James Crawford's money could no longer buy silence or freedom. The impact of Victoria Anderson's case rippled far beyond the courtroom. In March 2023, Congress passed Victoria's Law with unanimous support. The legislation closed loopholes that had allowed wealthy individuals to manipulate criminal investigations. No longer could money buy silence or create jurisdictional confusion. The law established independent oversight panels for cases involving high-net-worth suspects and protected whistleblowers within luxury establishments. Sophie Anderson transformed her grief into purpose. Using part of the victim compensation funds, she established the Victoria Project, an organization dedicated to identifying and preventing wealth-enabled abuse. The foundation provides legal support, safe housing, and advocacy for women trapped in situations similar to Victoria's. Their hotline, staffed 24/7, has already saved hundreds of potential victims. The hospitality industry underwent radical reform. Hotels implemented mandatory reporting systems for suspicious behavior. Staff received specialized training to recognize signs of abuse and trafficking. Security protocols were standardized across international properties, with independent auditing requirements. The changes, though costly, helped restore trust in an industry tainted by Crawford's crimes. Sarah Anderson found healing through unexpected channels. She began counseling families of abuse victims, using her experience to help others recognize manipulation tactics. Her testimony before Congress helped strengthen Victoria's law, ensuring that medical care could never again be used as leverage for abuse. Victoria saved my life twice, she often says. First through Crawford's money, then through exposing his evil. International investigations continued. Crawford's network had reached globally, and each new discovery led to more arrests. Police forces in 12 countries reopened cold cases connected to his properties. Former employees came forward with information about other victims. The full scope of his decades-long operation may never be known, but each revelation brought closure to another grieving family. Sophie's advocacy work expanded beyond the foundation. She became a powerful voice for legislative reform, pushing for stronger oversight of wealth and power. Her TED Talk, What My Sister's Murder Taught Us About Money and Justice, sparked a national conversation about privilege in the legal system. Universities began using Victoria's case to teach law students about wealth-enabled crime. The criminal justice system itself evolved. New protocols were established for investigating crimes involving billionaires. Task forces specialized in wealth-facilitated abuse formed in major cities. Prosecutors received additional resources and protection when handling cases against powerful defendants. Victoria's story became a blueprint for dismantling systems of privileged exploitation. Perhaps most significantly, Victoria's death changed how society views wealth and vulnerability. Her careful documentation exposed how predators use money to create and maintain systems of abuse. Media coverage shifted from sensationalizing May-December romances to examining power dynamics in relationships with large wealth disparities. The Victoria Project's prevention program now operates in schools nationwide. Students learn to recognize grooming tactics, understand financial manipulation, and identify signs of systematic abuse. The curriculum, initially controversial, has become a model for teaching young people about the intersection of wealth and exploitation. 2 years after Victoria's death, her impact continues to grow. Each new investigation using Victoria's law protocols brings more predators to justice. Every woman helped by the Victoria Project carries forward her legacy. The systemic changes she died to create have fundamentally altered how society handles wealth-enabled crime. In Franklin, Tennessee, a small memorial garden stands where Victoria once practiced violin. The plaque reads simply, Victoria Anderson. She turned her tragedy into triumph, her death into justice, her story into change. Sophie visits often, bringing fresh flowers and new stories of lives saved through her sister's sacrifice. Victoria knew she wouldn't survive, she tells visitors. But she made sure her death would protect others. That's not tragedy. That's heroism.